Okay, hello everyone. It seems like pretty much everyone has trickled in. Before we get started, I will say really quickly, I would really love to see some faces. I see a bunch of black boxes right now, but we would really love to see you all. So if you could turn on your camera, that would be great. If not, no worries. Hello everyone. Again, I'm so excited that y'all are here. I know it's like a Wednesday and it's summer, but it's so important that you're here building your advocacy skills, especially during the summer where you have more time to do so. As by my title, my name is Opsi Abibi. I am the co-director of the Legislative Affairs Department here at MCR, pronouns she, her, and I'm a rising junior. And I can pass it over to Nikita, my co-director, to also give a little info about herself.
Hi, everyone. Again, I echo Opsi. I'm so glad that you all are here. My name is Nikita. I am a rising senior at Clarksburg High School. Like Opsi said, I'm her co-director for the Leg Affairs Department here at MCR, and I also use she, her pronouns. I will pass it off to Shiree, our president, to talk to you guys a little bit about MCR.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out today. My name is Shiree Aurora. I am a rising junior at Richmond Montgomery High School, and I'm your MCR president for the upcoming year. I'm super excited for you all to be with us today. I know Opsi and Nikita are going to take you through an amazing workshop. Before I pass it back over to them, just a little bit about what is MCR for any of you who may be new. MCR is the Countywide High School Student Government Association, so we represent all high schoolers in Montgomery County, and we do a lot of advocacy and leadership work. We are also a member of the Maryland Association of Student Councils. So if you look at that little picture of the pyramid on your left of the screen, your school SGAs make up MCR, which is then a part of the Maryland Association of Student Councils, which is then a part of the National Association of Student Councils. So if we go to the next slide. Some of the things that we do to try to represent the student voice on issues are testify at board hearings, which is exactly what you're going to learn how to do tonight. We meet with different Board of Education and County Council members. We attend Board of Education town halls. We send students to Advocacy Day in Annapolis, where you get to talk one-on-one with your Maryland legislators and lobby to them about specific bills that we want them to either support or oppose. We select students to serve on different board work groups, and we write official policy papers declaring our stance on different issues. All of these opportunities are open to you, whether you're a part of our executive board or not. So if you are interested in getting involved, please send an email to mcr.sga@gmail.com. I'll put that in the chat, as well as check out our website and follow us on Instagram at mcrsga to get more updates. But I will pass it back over to our amazing legislative affairs directors to take you through this workshop tonight. I hope you all enjoy.
Thank you so much. So just to explain a little bit about what MCR's Legislative Affairs Department does, we are the department that researches legislation in the local and state government. We specifically research legislation that's important to education and youth issues, issues that students in the county care about. We also organize MCR's lobbying and testimony efforts, including our annual Advocacy Day, where we send students usually to Annapolis to lobby our Maryland General Assembly, and we also write resolutions for important legislation.
Yeah, so aside from MCR and Ledger Affairs, some other reminders specifically for today and today's workshop is to first limit any distractions that are near you. So if you have like extra electronics, books, really anything you think might distract you within the next hour, I highly recommend you put it outside the room or somewhere far away from yourself. And with that said, while you're limiting those distractions, you want to also make sure that you're engaging. There's going to be multiple opportunities for you to either use the chat for appropriate comments and questions, or even unmute and let us know some of your thoughts. So please try to engage as much as possible, because that's how it could go from being, a presentation to you to something that you're involved with. So keep that in mind. And then last but not least, but of course most important, enjoy yourselves. What I really love about MCR workshops is that you get the opportunity to not only learn about advocacy skills and practice them, but you get to do so without, the anxiety inducing pressure of like meeting with legislators firsthand or doing whatever advocacy action item in person. And you get this opportunity to really do it from the comfort of your own home and make mistakes. So really seize upon that and get yourself situated, engaged, and excited, because we're about to start. And with that said, we could also go to the next slide. So before we get into, like the nitty gritty stuff and actually start, we wanted to give you all a second to introduce yourself because I know you heard a little bit about me, Nikita, and Shirey, but we also want to hear about you all and have you all familiarize yourselves with one another. So if you could use the chat right now and drop in there your name, pronouns, grade, and favorite movie. I put an example on the board. My name is Opsy, pronouns she, her, 11th grade, and I don't know if even any of you've seen it, but Collateral Beauty, that's my favorite movie. I highly recommend watching it if you haven't already. And then that bonus question, which I bolded because I really want some people to try their hand at it. There's not a certain correct answer that we're looking for. We really just want to hear your thoughts. So then we could really start off from there. So if you could use the chat right now and start dropping in those answers, we would really love that. And I can give people about a minute to do that just so we can stay on time with everything. Okay, and In the Heights, yes, I love that. Oh my God, I don't know if any of you got the chance to watch that, but I'm not a theater person, but that movie has my heart. Clueless, Lady Bird, yes. Oh my God, Parasite. I can't emphasize that enough just because, I get like in America, it can be pretty like white centric and you only think about like Hollywood movies, but it's so important to be checking out some foreign films because they have some amazing content in there. Twilight. I don't know if any of you have seen, but it's on Netflix and I've low-key been binging. Enola Holmes, I'm seeing that frequently too. Okay. And could we have some people trying that bonus question? What is testifying? We would love to hear any thoughts. Maze Runner. Oop, there's the timer. Okay, so I actually did get a definition from someone about what they think testifying means. If we could have someone unmute and share, if not, I can just I can just not call, I can just read the responses that I have. So raise your hand with that icon. I believe you all have access to that icon, but raise your hand if you're willing to share. And if not, totally all right. And I can find a response to read out. No brave risk takers. Okay, yeah, go ahead. And do you pronounce your name Milay?
Malay.
Milay, okay.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but I think it's just advocating for something you care deeply about, whether it's just in your school or on like a county level.
Exactly, you got it. That really is, at the end of the day, like the simplest definition of testifying. And I really emphasize simplest because I know when people hear words like testifying and lobbying, it can get them really anxious. But you're right, it's really just that, advocating about an issue that you're really passionate about. And, that takes us to our workshop goals today, starting off with that concept of looking into what testifying even is, and then building from there to look at where and how you all can testify, and then prepping for your testimony opportunities with research and writing, and then some last minute reminders before testifying, and then what to do day of. And then my favorite part, which is practicing, because again, you get the opportunity to really make mistakes, learn, and grow through a hands-on learning experience without the pressure of like an in-person day of testimony. So we could go to the next slide. So yeah, starting off with that central question, what is testifying? And again, emphasis on the simplest definition. It really is just you reading a prepared speech and citing statistics and personal anecdotes to policymakers, the other, public viewers, and other key stakeholders. And this is a great opportunity for you to not only, as we were getting at before, share about your experiences and talk about an important issue that has been either impacting you or, uplifting the voices of those who have been impacted by this issue. But it's also an opportunity for you to sway policymakers' decisions, which is the goal at the end of the day, right? Because you really want to ensure that you're swaying their decisions so then they pass policies and create programs that will address the issue that you're bringing up. And we can also move on. So, with that said, you may be wondering, like, okay, I get what testifying is, but where can I even testify? It doesn't seem like a student, just some random student, can do it. And the thing is, you really can. There are so many local opportunities for you to do so, starting off with the most local that actually pertains to you all the most because you are MCPS students is the MCPS Board of Education. And as indicated by the title, the MCPS Board of Education has jurisdiction within the Montgomery County Public School District, meaning programs, policies, curriculums, they really decide on all of those. So if you ever have an issue that you believe is impacting students, they're the legislative body that you want to go to. Then the Montgomery County Council has jurisdiction over the county, and then the Maryland General Assembly, in other words, the Maryland State Legislature, has jurisdiction across Maryland. And in most cases, for the General Assembly, you're going to be testifying in their House and Senate committee hearings instead of the full floor, just because the full floor, the agenda is a bit more packed. But, looking at that, like, I know we also had a triangle pyramid to show you all before. This is like the same level of like proximity that you're going to have testimony opportunities for. Board of Education is the most local level, then there's the Montgomery County Council, and then of course at the largest level, the Maryland General Assembly. But then if you look at the bottom right there, if you look at your local city government, we wanted to also include that because even within, all the experienced student activists that work already in MoCo, a lot of people forget that they also have the opportunity to testify at their local city government. And this is so important because not only is it local, but if you have an issue that is either impacting you directly or your neighborhood, then, or even your city in this case, then that's the legislative body that you want to go to. And we can move on to. So now you know what testifying is and where you could testify, but you may be wondering, what's the sign-up procedure? And it's really simple. But it all, of course, starts with once you figured out which legislative body you're going to be speaking with, you want to start looking into, okay, what is the exact issue that I'm bringing up? If it's an issue that you feel hasn't been addressed yet, meaning it hasn't really been talked about at meetings and there's no upcoming meeting that's going to discuss this issue, you should prefer to go to a board or work meeting, just because that's a great opportunity for you to bring up a new issue. Whereas public hearings are mostly opportunities for you to discuss a specific topic that the legislative body has already decided they're going to speak about that day. And there's been previous board meetings, public hearings about the boundary analysis, the budget, even like the COVID-19 situation in schools. So that's where you want to go for any issues you feel like have been addressed but need to be elaborated on. And of course, if you aren't sure which meeting is coming up, then you should just check the website ahead of time. And speaking of the website, that's also where you're going to go to sign up for these testimony experiences. Every legislative body has a website and it's really simple to find them. Just open up whatever search browser you use and then type in their name and navigate through until you find either a page that says something like participate or public hearing sign up, because that's where you're going to be, not only getting the opportunity to sign up, but to also look at the agenda and see, okay, what is going to be talked about at this certain meeting? What do I need to bring up? And here, if we could put the link to this presentation in the chat for you all to open up and like get a glimpse now, I'll add it right now. But we put in the links of the MCPS Board of Education testimony page and the Montgomery County Council testimony pages, just so you guys can get a firsthand glimpse at what they already look like and get yourself familiar with that. But of course, the General Assembly in your local city government, you can find that just by searching it up. And then of course, once you've actually signed up and you're set to go there, I really can't emphasize this part enough. You really need to follow whatever instructions you're given, because if you don't, then there is a chance your testimony may not be heard, which is definitely something you don't want to have happen because you've prepped so much for it. And in most cases for virtual testimonies, especially in the past year, this will involve just like submitting either a video or a written testimony. But then if you go in person, you're likely going to have to bring multiple copies. And so now that we've really got over the technical things, you may be wondering, what am I going to even include in these testimonies? And that really lies in going through some testimony examples. And we wanted to really go through some examples first before we really gave you guys that information, because it's kind of like school. Have you ever had a teacher give you a lecture and give you a bunch of like formal definitions that you've had to like break down because you found confusing. That's like kind of what we wanted to avoid today. We really want to show you guys some examples and have you all identify key components of testimonies so then you can create your own definitions in your head and really understand testimonies on your own before we cross-reference our definitions with yours. So with that said, I can give quick background about this specific testimony. It was one that I gave this year, I believe in spring, through the virtual setting, of course. It was regarding SRO removal from MCPS, and I was working with an organization called STEPS, Students Toward Equitable Schools, and my testimony is specifically talking about that and me advocating for removing SROs from MCPS. So we can take a listen, and I think we have about 2 minutes for that. Yeah.
I'm a sophomore at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, and I support the removal of the SRO program from MCPS. Because not only is this program a problem for students of color and students with disabilities, but a problem for various student demographics in MCPS, such as survivors of sexual assault. Over the summer, as many of you know, numerous posts were published on accounts such as LGBTQ+ Black so on and so forth. One that stood out to me was the Survivors at BCC Instagram account because I saw at least 3 different posts regarding the poor interaction survivors had with SROs. The post stated that it took a long time for SROs to contact survivors of sexual assault and help them get justice, sometimes even up to a year. This, among many other factors, indicates the inefficiency of the program. Furthermore, the post also conveyed how many SROs reopened the wounds of these sexual assault survivors by interrogating them and implying that they didn't believe them. There were also many cases in which the survivors never got justice and only felt worse after meeting with SROs. This isn't a surprise because SROs aren't trained for this type of work. Counselors are, a fact that further reinforces the need to remove SROs and reallocate those funds to getting more school counselors that will truly help students instead of further traumatizing them. And I can speak to how traumatizing this program is. The only first and thankfully last time I interacted with an SRO was when they thought I had stolen my own phone and told me to drop my attitude when I questioned why they would assume that. Such a microaggression made me, a Black female student, feel unsafe around SROs from that point on. I can only imagine what else could have happened to me that day if I didn't drop my attitude. Would they have written a referral to tarnish my school record and impact how colleges saw me in the future? Would the situation have escalated into an unnecessary and violent arrest? Too many students are being subjected to asking these questions, a reality that further contributes to the toxic environment SROs create in our schools. There is so much intersectionality in our school district, and the SRO program fails most, if not all, intersectional aspects. It's also essential to note that the SRO program feeds into the school-to-prison pipeline, and that pipeline is a direct feeder into the PIC, Prison Industrial Complex. So I urge all of you to not let any more students of color with disabilities, with sexual assault history, whatever the case may be, fall prey to neither the pipeline nor the PIC because of the SRO program at MCPS. Thank you.
Okay, we can move on to the next slide. So as I was saying earlier, there's definitely going to be moments for you all to unmute and discuss, and this is one of those opportunities. Taking everything that you saw and heard from that testimony of mine, I really want you guys to look at these 4 questions, especially that first one. It's all right if you don't get to the others, but think about this and get ready to answer. What was included in the testimony, what wasn't, but could have been included in the testimony, and what did you like, and then what did you not like? And of course, all honesty is welcome, so please take it away. And I'll give about a minute for you all to brainstorm, and then we'll have some volunteers unmute and let us know their thoughts. Okay, I think that's about enough time. So if we could have some people raise their hand and get ready to share some of their answers, especially for that first one, because that's going to be something that we're going to try to do throughout this workshop, create our own definitions as to testimonies and other advocacy logistics, and then share. So if we could have someone, yeah, Shelton, go right ahead.
I guess I go. One thing that I liked a lot was having, the personal anecdote, because when you connect your person. Oh, yes. Can you hear me? Hello?
Sorry, if you're speaking, I can't hear you.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Is it just me? I can't hear him.
Yeah, I think it's maybe just your computer. I don't know.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure, but I know that having that personal connection with your testimony is so vital because the Board of Education, or I guess anyone in this case, they get a lot of statistics and a lot of, just blah, blah, blah. Well, it's not blah, blah, but they get a lot of words. And so when you connect yourself to the actual problem or to, what you're trying to bring awareness to, it really ties into why it's important and why it needs to be addressed, so soon or a lot quicker. So I think having, your personality tied into it, no matter, what the discussion may be, is really important. I think I really liked your story because it was really close to the SRO program, if you can hear me enough. But
yeah, I did. Sorry, I realized my computer was muted. Thank you, Shari, for pointing that out. But yeah, you're so right. As we were talking about earlier, those personal anecdotes, because at the end of the day, these legislators, I know they might seem a bit intimidating, but they really are humans, and you want to appeal to the humane aspect of them, that emotional aspect. So partly that with your personal anecdote, but then also proving that you as their constituent is someone that has been impacted by this issue firsthand. So yes, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Do we have anyone else that wants to either add to that or elaborate? Mile, I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah, it's close. Malay. But yeah, I was gonna say the same thing as that Shelton said about how when you use your personal anecdote or story, it kind of connected it to yourself and showed how passionate and important the topic is of SROs. I also liked how you used statistics and numbers because it kind of strengthened and put what you were saying into perspective about like the different posts. And how I just like how you used the different rhetorical appeals when you were talking. But yeah, I don't think there was anything I didn't like.
Okay, and how about one more, Iman?
Yeah, I was going to say that the reason I really liked it is because you mentioned so many of the different groups of people that were affected by the specific program. And I think that kind of as an organization, the SRO program has been something that we've been researching and kind of discussing for a long time now. And usually the topic, it ends up being a discussion about how, in particular, students of color and students from minority backgrounds are affected. But I actually had no idea that, survivors of sexual assault were also so traumatizingly impacted by this program. So it was super eye-opening just to me personally. And I think it really, really made your argument that much more impactful because, you were focusing on maybe a side of the issue that not many people are familiar with, while also kind of mentioning all the different groups of people that have been affected by the issue. So I thought that definitely made it look like not only you had done your research, but you really were mentioning that so many people are affected by the problem.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you guys are bringing up those aspects from the personal anecdotes to addressing marginalized groups that haven't been already brought up in the conversation. That was really what I was getting at. I think personally, I knew that I probably could have included some more statistics, but as you all were saying, if you have at least a personal anecdote and or a statistic, then your testimony will be great. And then also in my situation, since I was working with an organization, we beforehand, before anyone started their testimonies, we created a strategic plan as to who was going to bring up what. I was mainly bringing up personal anecdotes and, marginalized groups that hadn't already been addressed. But then this is definitely something to keep in mind when you're creating your testimonies, if you're going solo or if you're working with an organization. And depending on whatever your situation is, you definitely want to include what's appropriate, but at least a personal anecdote or a statistic will definitely be key for your testimonies. And we can actually move on to the next slide. So we wanted to show another quick example before we start, cross-referencing definitions and getting into the other nitty-gritty stuff. And this example, it's also one of my favorites because I feel like, with the video example we just showed you all, you saw a testimony in person and live, but well, not in person and live, but you know what I mean? Like you saw the actual testimony. But this example is more of a behind the scenes sort of example in the sense that you were all probably wondering, like, did she have it memorized or did she read off of something? And of course I read off of something, and this is not my exact paper, but this is what a similar testimony paper should look like, with all these different aspects. And I really want you all to identify them. So doing the same thing that we did last time, I'm going to put the link to this doc in the chat, and if everyone can open it up and start looking at, okay, what was included, what wasn't, what could have been, and we'll go from there and start sharing out again. But yeah, that's in the chat. So if everyone could open that up, and I'll give about 2 minutes this time, just because I understand people read at different paces. But yeah, read through that and keep in mind those central questions. Okay, so I really hope everyone got the chance to finish reading through that, but if you didn't, that's totally all right. You'll definitely hear from some others right now, but I hope you did get the main parts. And I would love to hear people's thoughts on, and we could actually move on to the next slide too, but what was included, what wasn't, anything you really liked, anything that you think of could have been edited. Yeah, take it away, whoever wants to share. If we could have some new people sharing this time, that would also be great too. I would love to hear a diverse group of thought. Whoa, computer's being weird. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna butcher this. Pratisha?
Protection, but it's okay. Something that I personally really liked was I noticed that in the written version of the testimony, there were specific phrases and words that were bolded, and I liked it because it really gave an emphasis on some important topics and just important keywords that really help emphasize how important the general topic is for the testimony.
Yeah, definitely. Having those, as people were saying, I think people were dropping in the chat, like, I'm getting chills, like, while they were watching my testimony. I had cues for myself as to which words I should emphasize, where I should have emotion. And that's exactly what Nikita included in her testimony here with those bolded words. So I love that people are picking up on that. That's definitely something you want to incorporate in your testimonies as bringing up theater again for any theater kids, like kind of as like stage directions for yourself. But yeah, I love that people bring that up. Do we have anyone else who wants to elaborate on that? Okay, I'm seeing, whoa, there's so many names popping up. Haleen, if you wanted to elaborate.
Yeah, I think there's like another component on the speech, especially because it's like a written document. I see there's like a lot of look up, means that you would definitely look up when to have some eye contact with the audience, to have some kind of interaction to show that you really care about this issue. And this is also something that news reporter would also do. So this is definitely like an effective strategy when you're doing a speech, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with those look up parts. You're right. Eye contact is so important and you want to give off that impression that you're not, poised and you're definitely here to make a stance, but you're not like nervous about it. So I love that you bring that up. And that's definitely another thing you all want to include basically under that same like umbrella term of stage direction. So like looking up cues, bolded words, so on and so forth, along with the other stuff that Nikita already included, like statistics and that personal anecdote. But yeah, I love that you guys already have this like general sense of what testimonies are involved. And we're actually going to continue with that same topic and really expand upon it. And Nikita, if you wanted to take it away with that.
Yeah, so now that you guys have seen a couple of examples, you might be wondering, what do you actually write and how do you find these resources to write your own testimony? All valid questions. So before you start writing, think about the following. Like Opsy said earlier, make sure you're picking a topic that you're knowledgeable about, or at least that you're passionate about and you want to learn more about so that you can testify on it, or a topic that has a personal relating to you so that you can, incorporate that personal story, which is the next bullet point there. You see the best method is a personal story. And as I believe Shelton already earlier pointed out, policymakers and legislators already have the facts. It's their job to have the facts, but what they don't have is your personal experiences. So that's a really key component to add to your testimony. Make sure you have that balance. So statistics, if you include them, always important, but when you're including them, they should be brief and tie back to your emotional appeal and have a balance between, your personal anecdote and that statistic. So here's a really basic formula for writing a testimony. Obviously, testimonies come in all different shapes. You can adapt this to fit whatever topic you're testifying about. But just to get started, here's a really, really basic template, I guess, for how you can write a testimony. So starting off with your introduction, listing your name, your school, your grade, pronouns. If you're working with an organization or you're testifying on behalf of an organization, introducing that organization as well. Telling your personal story first, making sure that you're telling the stories behind the numbers, telling your personal anecdotes that connect you to the issue, and then showing that research-based arguments. So what a lot of people do is that they share their personal anecdote and then to, elaborate on that, they're like, hey, this isn't only happening to me. This is happening to so many other people across this state, across this school, across this county. So again, incorporating those statistics to show that your story has a larger pattern and a larger impact. And then concluding with a strong rhetoric, make sure that you're restating your point and then also making your ask. So basically listing what you want from that policymaker. Do you want them to vote on a specific bill that you're testifying for or not vote on a bill that you're testifying against? Do you want them to, bring up a certain issue? Whatever you want them to do, make sure you list it. And also don't forget about tone when you're testifying, making sure that you're using a formal tone, but also remembering that you're a student and students aren't meant to be formal. So make sure you're also not losing your voice within that process. Where can you find your statistics? So this is a really good question, and I feel as though a lot of people struggle with this one. But one good place, especially if you're trying to find school statistics or MCPS-based statistics, is using the MCPS website, specifically the Schools at a Glance page. I believe Opsy sent our slides in the chat where you can find this link. But basically, looking at that page, you can search up any school in Montgomery County Public Schools that you want to, and you can find a bunch of statistics about each school. a couple of them that are really important that they include the demographics of each school, any special programs that they have, they include the demographics of the staff at each school, and then also including the average test scores of each school, which depending on what you're testifying for, those can be very useful for you. Another great website to find more county-based statistics outside of schools is the Montgomery County government website. Specifically, they have a page called County Stat. Here you can find a lot of demographics on the county in general, housing, statistics on healthcare, schools, and even find statistics on government performance, which I think is really cool. So yeah, these are the two websites that we would recommend to get started, but obviously there are so many more. All you have to do is find them out. But again, when you're finding statistics, make sure that, you know, wherever you're getting them from, they're from a reliable source so that you're stating accurate statistics during your testimonies. Now that you've written your testimony, you know how to write it, it's time to practice your testimony. So, tips for practice. When you're practicing, make sure you read it out loud. This seems like a very obvious idea, but you know, a lot of people forget, and it's important to read out loud so you know where you're going to stop, you know where you're going to pause. You know, you can practice for, you know, anyone in your house, in your home. Even if you're doing an in-person testimony, try and record yourself so you can see how you're going to look when you actually testify. Make sure as you're reading it aloud that you practice having an appropriate pace and enunciate. So make sure that you're not going too fast and people can understand what you're saying. Mark notes. So as we showed in the second testimony example that we gave, you can make notes for yourself on where to pause, where to look up. You can use different symbols for this. In my testimony, as you can see, I just basically gave myself the word look up because I felt that that would help me best. But it kind of depends on you. If you have words or phrases that you want to emphasize or enunciate or give more meaning to, bolding them or underlining them is important. Also remembering body language, you know, make sure you're standing up straight and you're doing natural gestures. This is important, especially when you're doing that in-person testimony. And next slide. Some last minute reminders as you go into either recording your testimony and submitting it, or, you know, testifying in person for you all. So for virtual testimony, which is usually what you are going to encounter and what we have been encountering this past year and this year, when you're recording, make sure that you're checking your audio and visual conditions. Make sure that you don't have any distracting sounds, that you have a very plain background so people can focus on you when you're testifying. Make sure that you're speaking clearly and close enough to the speakerphone so that people can hear you. Film with horizontal orientation. That's really important. And also watch the video to check to see if there are any parts that, you know, you might have to redo, or if everything sounds good. This is really important so that you know what your testimony is going to sound like when you submit it and when either the Board of Education, the General Assembly, or the County Council watches it. The format. So make sure that when you are submitting your virtual testimony that you use either an MP4 or an MP3, which is an audio only format. These are usually the formats that they will accept and allow. So again, one thing that's really important that we've listed down below is to watch and follow the email instructions that are sent to you if you are chosen to testify. So if they say a certain format, make sure that you are submitting your testimony in a certain format to comply with those. Make sure, this is really important, kind of seems obvious, but you know, just to remember, make sure that you're submitting on time. Make sure you have like a timeline for yourself from when you are cleared to testify for a certain hearing or a meeting and the day that the deadline is set, so that, you know, the county council or the Board of Education or the General Assembly gets to hear your testimony and that you're not missing any crucial deadlines. Written testimony is usually almost always accepted. They might not during like live hearings, they might not show written testimony, but the county council or any sort of legislative body will always read them. Again, to submit written testimony, make sure you're following instructions either through email or there'll be instructions on the website. So yeah. Tips for in-person testimonies. So make sure that you know what you're gonna wear. Business casual usually works fine. You know, a nice formal button down or a nice blouse. It should work fine, but make sure you're not dressing in anything too casual, and make sure you're showing through your appearance how important you feel that this testimony is, because it definitely is. And if you would like, you can also mobilize friends to come with you to show support. If hearings allow signs, have them make signs so that you're showing a strong area of support behind you. But yeah, that's just a fun thing that you can do. And for in-person testimonies, the day of the testimony, make sure that you're early or on time. Sometimes if you're on the wait list for a testimony, or sometimes if people don't show up, your testimony time might get moved up or moved down. So make sure that you're early or on time for your testimony, following those instructions that are given to you when you're chosen to testify. Identify your allies and who else will be testifying. You can text people beforehand, but make sure that you are kind of making friends, but also seeing which people are supporting you through testifying or through the audience. If there's time before or after, get to know the legislators and the staff sponsoring the bill that you're testifying for. Start a conversation. This is a great way to do some networking, and also a great way to know more about the bill. When you're actually in the hot seat to testify, you can begin speaking once the chair identifies you, so calls your name, identifies you to start speaking. And before you start your remarks and your prepared speech, make sure you thank the chair and the members of the Board of Education, the members of the County Council, or the members that are in the Maryland General Assembly at your hearing. So, just as a way to be polite, and also just as a way to show, formalness and manners. Yeah. Now, this is probably the most exciting part, but now it's time for you all to testify. Yeah, so just to explain, me and Opsy are going to put you guys in breakout rooms, and in the next slide, we'll be showing you a random policy based on your last name that you can choose to testify for or against. In breakout rooms, you'll have 5 minutes to come up with this testimony. Feel free to get creative with different personal anecdotes or statistics. And then after the first 5 minutes are up, and then you have that prepared speech, spend another 5 minutes with your group, sharing out your different testimonies, kind of notice what other people are saying as they testify. But yeah, we wanted to give you all this experience because, like Opsy said, it's really important to practice these skills that you've learned and kind of create some testimonies for yourself. Here is the slide, and I will keep this up. And I'm actually going to stop sharing really quickly. Oh, wait, never mind. Yeah, I'm actually going to keep on sharing, and just check out these slides. As it says, check out which prompt aligns with what your last name starts with. And as soon as we're ready, we're going to put you guys in breakout rooms. And like I said before, you'll have 5 minutes to come up with a testimony. You can testify for these prompts or against these prompts if you don't agree with it. Yeah, and then once those 5 minutes are up, we'll be sending a little reminder to start sharing.
You all should have received an invitation to your breakout rooms. If you don't see an invitation or anything like that, please let us know and we will put you into your rooms.
All right. Everyone should be back by now. But I hope you all enjoyed that experience. And now I kind of want to take a couple of minutes to take some time to reflect. And if anyone wants to share out loud on any of the testimonies that they heard in their breakout rooms that they really liked, and they want to know on what some of those components were, anything that they included in their testimony that they thought was important. If anyone wants to raise their virtual hand, and let's get some people to share out maybe. No one?
Come on, y'all. We would really love to hear from you. You know, what went well, what didn't. What do you think is easier now that you've done it? What do you think you may need to practice a little bit more on?
Oh, I see. Malay?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I really like the testimonies in my breakout room. It felt, especially just for 5 minutes of writing, it felt real like it was really good. I don't know. I just liked it, and they hit all the points.
That's awesome. I see Yoshika.
Yeah, I also think that everything went well in our room. I heard a lot of like humorous points and personal points, and it really just like tied up the whole thing, especially just in 5 minutes. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that people kind of incorporated some of that humor because it's supposed to be fun. And last person, Shelton.
So since it was 5 minutes, I decided to use your template that you gave in the beginning of how to outline it. And so that's how I outlined my testimony. And I thought it was really helpful, for trying to get something, get some ideas down and then work on it from there. And secondly, not anyone necessarily my breakout room, but I've seen like how a lot of people are numb sometimes. And I think, having a lot of emotion and emphasis on a lot of key words that are in your testimony is really important because it, kind of brings light and brings your testimony to life. So I think that's really helpful as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm glad that you were able to use that template to your benefit. But yes, I totally agree. I feel like sometimes, especially sometimes people get so wrapped up in kind of reading the testimony that they kind of forget to show, this is really just like you're really just talking, you're trying to persuade people. It's important to show some of that emotion. But yeah, we shall move on now. Just to quickly review, here are the steps that we went over to testify. We're not going to read them all out because we just went over them. But again, obviously put the link to our slides in the chat if you kind of just want to review them. But, it starts with, figuring out where you want to testify and then recording your testimony and submitting it or testifying in person. And we hope that you guys learned a lot with these steps. Yeah, Opsi, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know that I put the link to the slides in the chat, and they'll also be emailed to you. So don't worry about like jotting down notes or like memorizing everything all at once. You're definitely gonna have it later on. But aside from that, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I really enjoyed. I didn't get the chance to actually go through some of the rooms because when I did, everyone was prepping. But I loved seeing everyone's commitment, and I really do